The member for Rankin.
Thank you, Speaker. I seek leave to move the following motion. That the House, 1, notes that yesterday it was revealed the Finance Minister received free flights to Singapore from Hello World, which he booked by calling the CEO of this ASX-listed company directly, just before it was awarded a multi-million-dollar whole-of-government contract by the Minister's own department. B, today it's been reported that US Ambassador Joe Hockey, who has a $1 million shareholding in Hello World, helped a Hello World subsidiary lobby for the embassy's travel contract. C, the CEO of Hello World and one of its largest shareholders, Andrew Burns, is a Liberal Party heavyweight and current Liberal Party treasurer, with connections to a number of Liberal Party politicians. D, the Finance Minister told Senate estimates yesterday that he had a, quote, a close personal relationship with Mr Burns. E, Mr Burns was previously a colleague of the now Prime Minister during the Prime Minister's time at Tourism Australia. F, since being awarded government contracts, the share price of Hello World has skyrocketed, making shareholders like Mr Hockey and Mr Burns rich. And G, this morning it was reported that the Herald Sun asked almost all of the 82 Liberal MPs in Parliament whether they had received free travel from Hello World, but only 14 said that they had not. And 2, therefore, calls on the Prime Minister to investigate and report to the House how far this Hello World scandal reaches into his government.
Is leave granted? Leave is not granted. The member for Rankin.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent the member for Rankin from moving the following motion immediately. That the House, 1, notes that A, yesterday it was revealed the Finance Minister received free flights to Singapore from Hello World, which he booked by calling the CEO of this ASX-listed company directly, just before it was awarded a multi-million-dollar whole-of-government contract by the Minister's own department. B, today it's been reported that US Ambassador Joe Hockey, who has a $1 million shareholding in Hello World, helped a Hello World subsidiary lobby for the embassy's travel contract. C, the CEO of Hello World and one of its largest shareholders, Andrew Burns, is a Liberal Party heavyweight and current Liberal Party treasurer, with connections to a number of Liberal Party politicians. D, the Finance Minister told Senate estimates yesterday that he had a, quote, close personal relationship with Mr Burns. E, Mr Burns was previously a colleague of the now Prime Minister during the Prime Minister's time at Tourism Australia. F, since being awarded government contracts, the share price of Hello World has skyrocketed, making shareholders like Mr Hockey and Mr Burns rich. And G, this morning it was reported that the Herald Sun asked almost all of the 82 Liberal MPs in Parliament whether they had received free travel from Hello World, but only 14 said that they had not. And 2, therefore, calls on the Prime Minister to investigate and report to the House how far this Hello World scandal reaches into his government. Mr Speaker, these are very serious issues that we are raising in the Parliament. They are far too serious to be dismissed and to be laughed off and to be ignored by this arrogant and out-of-touch government. This is a very Liberal scandal that we're dealing with. It has all of the stink and all of the stench of a very Liberal scandal. It's got all of the mates at the top end of town, all the insider deals that lock out ordinary working people, all of the ingredients of what we've come to expect from this government opposite, which always governs for the top end of town at the expense of people who work and struggle in this country. It's a very, very Liberal scandal. And what we've seen today in this House is the alternative universe that those opposite inhabit. The alternative universe where it's entirely normal, when you want to book the 3:30 flight out of Perth, you ring up the CEO of an ASX-listed company. That's the alternative universe that they live in. The alternative universe which says that you don't actually notice when somebody else picks up a $3,000 tab for you. You don't notice that it hasn't come out of your credit card. The alternative universe that those opposite occupy, where there is one set of rules for their rich Liberal Party mates and another set of rules for ordinary Australians in communities that we represent right around this country. Now, there are so many things today, Mr Speaker, that the Prime Minister and his sidekick his offsider, the member for Sturt, were unable to explain. So many things that they were unable to explain. They couldn't provide a simple answer to a simple question about whether the documents which prove that Mr Hockey asked one of the embassy officials to take a meeting with the company at the centre of this scandal, whether or not that document exists. And when the member for Sturt was asked about this, he basically told the House, look, when we get around to checking it out, we'll see how we go. Well, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. The Australian people deserve answers about this latest grubby scandal which is engulfing the government which sits opposite from us today. There are so many aspects to this, but perhaps the one that the Prime Minister needs to explain from his own answers today, I think. There's a lot of explaining to do from the Prime Minister. There's a lot of explaining that he needs to do. But he said today, and he scurried out of the House, he's gone and hidden his office, but he said today, and I quote, "I'm advised Mr Hockey did not instruct staff to meet QBT or any other companies in relation to the tender and as part of normal business." And what the Prime Minister needs to explain when he next speaks, or when the member for Sturt does, is that he is claiming that Mr Hockey didn't request embassy staff to meet with QBT at all. Now, this is a very serious issue here. This is a very serious issue. The Prime Minister is denying something of which there are reports of documents which exist from officials in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. That is a very, very serious matter, Mr Speaker, and that's why we need to suspend standing orders to get to the bottom of these very, very important issues. Now, everybody in this House and everybody who has followed this scandal knows where it began. It began with the Minister for Finance booking the 3:30 out of Perth or whatever it was by ringing the CEO of a company, not understanding when a $3,000 bill was paid by someone else, despite the fact that those opposite, they're all chasing people on government payments, aren't they? They all notice. They notice every cent that goes into a recipient's account, don't they? But $3,000 doesn't come out of the Finance Minister's account, and that's no big deal. That's the alternative universe that those opposite occupy, as I said a moment ago. So we know where this scandal began, but we don't yet know where it ends. We don't yet know where it ends. And I don't think they know where it ends yet either. There's a lot more questions to be asked, and there's a lot more questions to be answered. And I think what really gave it away in question time today was when we started asking about the travel arrangements between Mr Burns and others, the ashen faces. The ashen faces. Right along the front bench. All these people hoping that the next question wasn't to them. All of these people desperately hoping that the next question wasn't going to be to them. I saw it. The member for Flinders, I thought, was particularly revealing. I'd love to know more about that. But we'll get to all of that. We'll get to all of that, Deputy Speaker, in due course. We will get to all of those questions. Now, those opposite have started talking a lot about a chum bucket, haven't they? They've started talking a lot about a chum bucket. And what this scandal, which I'm going to call Chumgate, because Chumgate involves so many Liberal Party chums, doesn't it? So many Liberal Party chums are involved in Chumgate, right up and down the front bench and beyond, all the way up into the cheap seats. There's a lot of chums involved in this scandal. And we're going to get to the bottom of Chumgate, aren't we? We're going to get to the bottom of this scandal, because the only difference between a chum bucket and the Liberal Party is the bucket itself. There's a lot of chums involved in this scandal. And time won't permit me, Deputy Speaker, going to all the other reasons why this is important, but just think about it for a moment. Even in the last few months, when we're talking about the awarding of big government contracts, they just can't help themselves, can they? No. $500 million to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation that they didn't ask for, $500 million to the Paladin Group, which is registered to a beach shack on Kangaroo Island or some such. They just can't help themselves. They can't get it right. And yet they want us to trust them to make a good decision on offshore visa processing. And when the Prime Minister's own friend is intimately involved in one of the bids, we know how this movie ends, don't we? We know how they work on that. We know how they roll on that side of the house, don't we, when it comes to the awarding of big government contracts, and the Australian people are very worried about it. Now, while all this is going on, while this Liberal government goes out of their way to look after their mates at the top end of town, the Australian people just don't get a look in. They don't get a look in. And just today, as the Shadow Treasurer and others, the Shadow Employment Minister, have talked about, no doubt, we've got a wages figure out today, 0.5%, annual 2.3%. We've got in this country historically low wages growth. We've got stagnant wages. People aren't getting a look in. They aren't getting rewarded for their work. We've got stagnant wages. We've got all kinds of things. Everything's going up except for wages. We've got childcare costs up, power bills up, private healthcare costs up. People are underemployed. People are insecure at work. And those opposites spend all their time working out how they can work the angle, little insider deals for their rich Liberal Party mates. And doesn't that just say everything about those opposites? If only those opposites spent as much time caring about insecure work or stagnant wages as they spend trying to do insider deals for rich Liberal Party mates, the whole country would be better off. The whole country would be better off. And that's what this is about. That's what this is about at the end of the day. This is a government which is so horrendously out of touch. Their priorities are so warped that when we get a wages number like we did today and we have been getting for some months, when we get all the things about insecure work and underemployment, falling consumer confidence, bad business conditions, all of these things that really matter in the Australian economy, what are they up to? What are they up to? Flying around on free flights, ringing up their mates, getting insider deals, doing deals, awarding big government contracts to people that they are intimately involved with in the Liberal Party. So that's why standing orders need to be suspended. Deputy Speaker, we know where this began, but we don't yet know where it ends, and we are going to pursue it until the Australian people get the answers that they need and deserve.
Is the motion seconded? I call the member for Isaacs.
The motion is seconded and I reserve my right to speak.
I call the